Another day, another loss for the Warriors. They've now lost 9 and 11. Meanwhile, the Bulls have lost 5 in a row. The Lakers went back to their losing schedule. they they got one win against the Warriors, but they've been losing in and out. And LeBron sat out this one as well. Greg
Yeah,
Popovich is now just one win away from being the most successful coach in NBA history. That's a great achievement.
yeah.
On today's episode, though, I want to talk about a little bit about the Bulls and the other team, other contenders in the East, because now the Miami Heat has found some kind of separation at the top. It's not a lot, but it's still some separation. It's not half a game ahead. It's 3 games ahead now. So let's talk about the East on today's episode. Uh, in the recent past, whenever we looked at the top teams, we praised the Suns, we praised the Bucks, we praised even Grizzlies, we praised the Sixers. We said the Warriors are still contenders despite their poor form, but we somehow forget Miami Heat. They sit on top of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
Now they're 3 games ahead. Uh, in their last 5 games, they beat the Nets, they beat the Sixers, they beat the Bulls, and a close loss against the Bucks. So they've been pretty much beating uh, all of the teams that they might face in the playoffs, especially in the second round and the finals, because these are the teams that you would expect to meet: the Sixers, the Nets, the Bucks, the Bulls, and they've done pretty well against them. And one of these games they missed Butler. All of those games they missed Lowry. I think Lowry
Yeah.
just returned yesterday.
Mhm.
They've they when you play the Heat, it's not going to be a high scoring game. You'll find some
Right.
weird score like 91, 89 and stuff like that, because the defense is so good. And now you have Victor Oladipo, who returned after 14-month layoff. It never hurts to have an additional pair of legs on the court for you, and Oladipo brings in that experience as well. We don't know how fit he is and how much of a
Mhm.
or how much of a top level he can play, but he's still good. It's additional pair of legs. He's a former All-Star. He's made the All NBA defense team, so that makes the Heat even more tougher. Is it time to give Heat their due and put them in the top echelon of teams? I know that we don't fancy them, but come on, they're doing well. Why don't we do that?
Who said they aren't? Chicago Bulls are doing well. They were leading the
Mhm.
league for weeks and weeks and weeks. Did anyone say they're going to win the chip? You get the due that you deserved, and you can kind of argue they get slighted a lot, perhaps because of their play style. It's not flamboyant, it's not flashy. They don't have not one superstar that leads the league in jersey sales, the top 5 or whatever. It's not up there. He's not owning Instagram. They don't have one. They're all, it's like industrial revolution era, like shipyard workers, bricklayers. Is that kind of grit and grind and determination. It's a great team, but the style is such that you're not making a lot of highlight reels. You're not making a lot of people go nuts that I've got to watch. Nobody wakes up and says, today I've got to watch the Miami Heat, regardless of who else is playing.
Yep.
That doesn't happen. So that's kind of why they and this happens to teams that are a lot more exciting. So it's not like the Miami Heat are victims of this alone. There's only so much time for prime time. They're sitting on top of the East, which for a while the Bulls sat. And I guess they get as much attention as the Bulls, except the Bulls came out of nowhere, and the DeRozan thing nobody saw coming, and so they might have got a little bit more of a fillip, right? So no, I don't think we're slighting the Heat. I don't think we're looking at them, but to a lesser degree, the same thing that I said about Phoenix yesterday applies to Miami also, at least in my opinion. Is I don't look at them and see one thing about them that makes me think, yep, they're going to go series after series winning. They've got great defense, but that's about it. In a 7-game series, do I fancy them? In round 1, absolutely. Who are they likely to face in round 1? Like the Hornets or Raptors, or if they don't get their
Maybe
shit
the
together,
Nets.
the Nets. Yeah. Right. Hornets, or I fancy them. Raptors is a fight. That's a fight to 7 games if Miami play Toronto. And that's the Raptors, who are 7th in the league, right? So you can imagine what I have to say about the other 5 teams that are between the Heat and the Raptors. So I don't know. I think it's the curse of going to the finals. It's what happens when you've been to the finals recently. It's that's sort of where the benchmark is set, and then anything else, nobody's really getting excited. Like if the Bucks topped the East, would anyone give a damn right now?
No, not really. But nobody expected the Heat to be there as well. Plus, you know that their coach has done it all. He's won the title before. He's one of the best coaches in the league, probably the best coach in the league. And you saw how he can get it done with a bunch of 5 players whom nobody has heard about, which is why I think the Heat deserves a little more recognition that than they get. Uh, it's
Yeah,
a
that's
little
all right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to see them beating the Bucks consistently. 4 times, I don't see that happening. Maybe once, maybe twice, but 4 times it's a little difficult.
Correct.
Which is why I wouldn't pick the Heat over the Bucks, but over anyone else, I would fancy my chances for the Heat
I mean,
because
it's
they can
it's
they
the
can beat the
attention.
Sixers.
Can they? No, I don't know. I'm not so sure. I'm
No,
really not so. No, no, no. If the Sixers are fit, I'm not so sure. What defense? I don't care how good your defense is. Who the hell stopping Embiid? Bam? No chance. He couldn't handle.
hmm
He couldn't handle AD in the finals. He's gonna handle Embiid. Not happening. Who in the world is stopping James Harden? Butler can stop him. He'll go to the line 20 times. He'll get his points one way or another, right? And then there's Maxey. It's just too loaded a team, and they're not bad on defense, Philadelphia. So that's a tough thing, and it's also there's only so much bandwidth with the media, with podcasters and amateurs and semi-professional writers. There's only so much bandwidth that you can devote to favorites and talking points among the teams. The Sixers are eating up a ton of that, especially now with Harden and Embiid, right? Bucks with Giannis is always a story. Nets never failed to disappoint. That's a soap opera. So they never failed to disappoint. So you've got 3 teams already. And which is kind of why nobody even talks about the Celtics could go on another 10-0 run and nobody's going to talk about them that much. And then in the East, you have Phoenix. Are they in a slump? Is the Warriors train heading towards the wreck? What the fuck is happening with the Lakers? Luka Magic, blah, blah, blah. There's so many talking points. Ja Morant, Trae Young, is he going to mount a comeback? So in the middle of all this, there's nothing glitz and glamorous about Miami. That's pretty much why they where they get missed out. Which is why they're a shade below the Bulls, because the Bulls had that DeRozan story to kind of anchor the narrative.
True. The Bucks have hit some kind of form. 4 consecutive wins after that loss against the Brooklyn Nets, which was kind of a surprise, right? The loss to Brooklyn Nets because Nets have been struggling, and then Kyrie Irving came and torched them, because it was very uncharacteristic of the Bucks to lose like that when they had the lead in the last 5 minutes. But then after that, they came out with a vengeance. They beat the Heat, the Bulls, and the Suns in the last 3 games. Drew Holiday has hit some semblance of form. He's getting 25 pretty consistently. Middleton's got 44 in one of those games. And well,
Giannis is
yeah. Exactly. And the Bucks look like the Bucks that we predicted will win the East. 2 weeks ago we had our doubts, but I think they're back now and they're playing like they should. So there's nothing much to focus on the Bucks here, but Chicago Bulls, they've hit a slump. 0-5 in the last 5 games. They've lost to Heat, the Hawks, they lost to the Bucks, they lost to the Sixers, and they lost to Grizzlies. And they're 0-9 against the top 3 in their own conference, 0-14 against the top 3 in both the conferences combined. 0-14. How can you not win one game against the top teams? I fear for the Bulls. I mean, do they even make the second round of the playoffs with this form?
So I don't know. Again, I'm going to stick to my guns of if I haven't seen them do it, I'm going to assume they can't do it. I have not seen this team in the playoffs yet, so I can't really say, hey, I'm confident that they'll do this and that and the other. But who are they likely to face, though? I mean, should they make the playoffs?
They slipped to 4th now, which means Celtics are in 5th. And even if the Celtics leapfrog them, they're just half a game behind. They'll face the Celtics in the first round. And at this stage, I would fancy the Celtics over the Bulls, clearly, because Celtics look like probably the second best team in the league in the East right now, or third, probably after the Heat and the Bucks. They've been on a tear. Their defense is miles better than anyone else. Tatum is playing like the player he was supposed to be. Right? So I take the Celtics over the Bulls right now.
I like that matchup, except is Caruso going to be back for the playoffs?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just looking for just anything to put the Bulls over, man. No, I'd probably pick. I'm assuming Bulls go in as the underdogs. Should they finish 4th, they should go in as the underdogs. Even if they're a spot above the Celtics, they've never done it in the playoffs. Well, never is a big overstatement. They've done it plenty of times in the playoffs, but in the last few years or decades, even they're not. Couple of decades. I would love to see what DeRozan does with a real squad again. He had that in Toronto. The only thing you can accuse DeRozan of not being able to do is knocking LeBron out. That's it. That's the only time he has failed. He couldn't knock LeBron James out of the playoffs. That's all. He's beaten everyone else. He's been to conference finals. Just couldn't take out LeBron James. just better men have tried and failed. So I'd love to see that. I would actually pick the Bulls in that matchup,
Okay.
just because I think it's the kind of team that push comes to shove can defend to a certain level better than whatever they're defending right now with all their personnel back. They're not going to match the Celtics on defense, but there's something about their offense that I would pick over Boston's offense. Plus the intangibles, the team chemistry, the way everyone seems to be focused, and it happened so fast. Like so many personnel changes, people came in and just like that they gelled and they were topping the league for fun. Boston for 5 years now has just been in shambles in that regard. There's disgruntlement. Is Marcus Smart in on it? Is he not? Is he one with the team? Is he questioning the team? Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, do they hate each other's guts? Who the hell knows what's happening in that team? It's always,
and yet
always
somehow they make
tension.
the conference finals despite all of this.
So that's before all of this, right? Because I think it started the year after that with the whole rumblings and the Smart. Yeah, I know they've been to multiple finals, but the whole in the last, let's say 3 seasons, right? Let's bring it down to that. Last season, now post Kyrie, post whatever Hayward, all of that stuff.
Well, I think it was a bubble season where Marcus Smart just went off on his teammates, and that season they made the conference finals. It was just the last season where
I'm not saying the results aren't there. I'm just saying with these teams, you never know if they're really all together or it's just they're good, so they get the job done regardless of being in the bubble season, right? They went to the conference finals. What business did they have losing to that Miami Heat team?
Yeah.
So and for me, this is a depleted team from then. Even though the players are older and more experienced, it's just not. It doesn't seem a stronger team. They're league standing short again. So I don't know. I kind of have a tough time picking Boston and saying, okay, these guys will get it done. Weirdly enough, for a team that's been to at least 2 conference finals in the last 5 years, something like that. 3. Well, there you go. It's like those, come show me you can do it in the playoffs before I can trust you. I don't know how they managed to put themselves in that spot.
Their form has been remarkable, though. Team? Do you remember any team that was so pathetic in the first half of the season? They were 11th, if you remember, for a good stretch of time, even below the Atlanta Hawks, and now they're on a tear upwards. Is there a team that has turned around its fortune so much in the gap of like half a season?
Yeah, well, I mean, if they finish the season like this and at this rate, they'll probably end up second or third. Then I can't really think of anyone else. I'm sure there are examples. I can't think of any. But otherwise, it's a short run. Plenty of teams have put together runs like this before kind of crashing again. So far, it's
while I was asking you this, I just remembered that the Hawks last season, although they didn't finish the regular season on second or third, but they still made the conference finals, and they were pathetic in the first half of last season as well, right? The Hawks need some kind of form right now. They cannot put together 2 wins together. Another loss against the Detroit Pistons yesterday in overtime. The Cavs, they're moving downwards. They're now in 6th spot, and probably the biggest news for them now is the injury to Jarrett Allen. How is that going to impact them? Because he's one of their starters, who's one of their important starters. He brings the size to the court, and he's a great defender.
They're saying indefinitely, right, with Jarrett Allen?
Yes, it's a wrist injury. Don't know when he's going to be back.
Yeah, okay. It was fun while it lasted. See you guys next season.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, I mean, Sexton's out, Allen's out. At some point, they're like, fuck it. let's pick it up. Whatever they do, I think they've made a point. They've made a statement. If there's a free agent that wants to come and plug into a quite able and moving up team on the come up, an able team on the come up, this is it right here. They have a solid backcourt unless Sexton leaves. If he does leave, I would assume it'll be for some talent in exchange. They've got the bigs. I don't know if there's a 2-way wing. I don't know. Maybe Kawhi Leonard's disgruntled. I don't know if anyone wants to move.
LeBron James wants to move back home.
I don't see that happening. But sure, if he wants to move, not next season though. I think there's too much money involved. I think there's the whole. His daughter's on YouTube. I'm sure all of them love the LA life. Nobody the fuck wants to go back to Cleveland. And this whole media empire and all that. So I'd be surprised if it happens before his son makes the NBA. If he makes the NBA.
Okay, so the Cavs are dropping. Do you think they'll make the playoffs? The Raptors are just behind them. The Nets are supposed to move up. I can't say they are moving up, but they're supposed to move up. So with the Raptors and the Nets chasing, do you think the Cavs can just hold on to that 6th spot?
Tell you what, I think they can make the playoffs regardless of what spot they finish if both the Raptors and the Nets move up.
Okay,
Then
you
they
think
can
they'll win
get
the
done.
play-in?
Yeah, because if the Hawks are still there, something seriously wrong with that team. If you go to the play-in games, you can't ever write off Trae Young, as we've learned in the sample size of one season. But I think the Cavs are all right. I think they're up for a fight. Garland's on the come up. That's an interesting team. So they're all right with the rest of the. I think they'll take Charlotte. I think they can easily take Charlotte. And if Toronto and Brooklyn move up, most likely it's going to be the Cavs hold down, of course, and then one other team, maybe Boston, maybe Chicago. I fancy the Cavs in one game, just straight shootout, knockout. Yeah, sure, they can put up a fight against any of those guys. In a series, that's tough. I wouldn't pick them over either of those teams, both the Celtics.
And
So
after speaking about,
it's not all done.
And after speaking about all of these top contenders and whatnot, what we've kind of concluded here, and I think I have to agree with you, is that the Bucks and the Sixers are clear favorites.
Yeah.
They sit in second and third. That does not matter. They're favorites compared to the Miami Heat, compared to even Brooklyn Nets or below them, compared to the Boston Celtics, who are by form the best team in the league right now. So you think the Bucks and the Sixers are the teams to beat? If you got to go to the finals, you need to beat either of these teams or probably even both these teams.
Yeah, I mean, the defending champs, as long as they're somewhere in the top three and playing well, any year, any team, you've got to say that's at least one of the two teams to beat, if not more. And 76ers for sure with the Harden trade, assuming everyone's fit. That's it. That's the battle for the East. At some stage, one of them is going to have to knock out the other. And you would presume whoever does that takes the East. If it's in the finals, then obviously they take the East. But if it's in the round before that, unlikely. But winner takes the East.
At the moment, whom would you pick if you had to pick between the Sixers and the Bucks?
I'm standing strong all season long. I've had only one team. I think the Bucks are going to win it this season. That's the smart money, at least. I don't know if they will win it, but that's
I'm with you. I think I like the Bucks' chances better than the Sixers. I don't like a team that has not seen playoff and have those wounds from the playoffs, right? Like the Phoenix Suns this year. I would really pick them because, well, they have wounds from last year and they're playing well.
Yeah, don't say wounds. Embiid has wounds from like 6 years. Physical, metaphorical, literal, all kinds of wounds. So
Harden has too, but I mean, when he has playoff wounds, not really injuries like Embiid.
Yeah, but Embiid, 15 bounces and in. He has wounds, man. He cried on national TV.
Yes. But Harden has wounds, but not together. Exactly. Which is why I don't really pick the Sixers. I would like them to see some losses together and then put up a challenge and then overcome the odds. Right?
Okay. Fair. It'll take. It'll be poetic if the one thing that causes the 76ers downfall this season. I'm assuming again that everyone's fit. I don't want to see a scenario where we don't see the best of the Sixers. I want to see the best of them. If they win, they win. If they don't, well, okay. But it'll be so poetic cruelly poetic if they lose at some point in the playoffs. No injury concerns, but they just straight up they lose. They get knocked out. And the biggest factor is identified to be lack of perimeter defense. It'll just be such, sick Machiavellian.
I think the Sixers still can hold themselves together. Thibault does a great job of doing.
Sure.
All right, then. As usual, great fun talking to you. We'll come back tomorrow and talk. Fun games today. The Warriors take on the Clippers. That's something I'll be watching. The Warriors are in horrible form, and somehow, weirdly, the Clippers would probably start this game off as favorites because they've been putting together some kind of a run. Although their game against the Knicks was a disaster, but I think the Clippers are in better form than the Warriors right now.
And you're watching a Clippers game in the stadium soon, right?
That's tomorrow.
Clippers against the Wizards.
Yep.
See Terrence Mann and Kyle Kuzma in action.
No, I'm going to see the unicorn, the poor. I can tell you the unicorn.
Is he even standing up straight? I thought he injured again, right?
He came back and scored 25 in his first game for the Wizards. So
okay. Keep checking Twitter to make sure he's playing on Friday.
All right, then I'll see you tomorrow.
Peace. Bye.